Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Be'in podcast. Today, my guest was none other than Rabbi Dani Kunstler from Yeshivat Shraga. Rabbi Kunstler has taught me personally so much in my life and helped me in my growth. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him on this podcast specifically is that he is a tremendous musician. His family are all musicians, and he has so much to share on the topic of music. And speaking about sharing on the topic of music, he's been going around for the past 10 plus years to many different yeshivas and seminaries across the spectrum, giving the famous music schmooze, if you guys know about that. And if you don't know about that, you'll hear a lot about that in this episode. So without further ado, it's time to listen to my amazing episode with Rabbi Dani Kunstler. Here we go. Welcome to the Israel Gap Year Be'in podcast. I'm your host, Avi Proctor, and in each episode, we get Be'in in depth into the remarkable lives of individuals in Israel who dedicate themselves to inspiring the next generation of Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Kunstler, welcome to the brand new studio here in Neve Shamir. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And also thank you for coming from Yerushalayim. Most of my guests that I interview on here come from about down the road, 5 minutes away. Live in Ramat Shemesh, but you came all the way from Yerushalayim, so much appreciated on that front. This is something that's very special to me, obviously, because you're a role model in my life, and we've known each other for a bunch of years. And there's a lot to talk about with you specifically on the topic of music in your year in yeshiva and seminary, and honestly after your years in Israel. But before we get into those things, give the people that don't know who you are a little bit of background on yourself. How do you get to living in Israel, growing up in America, and kind of give me your whole life story as bekitzer as possible.
Okay, so first of all, Avi, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here, to be part of this. I've listened to your other podcasts, so your other episodes. So I'm a big fan. Really, really love what you're doing, everything that you do.
Appreciate it.
So I grew up in a small community called Bell Harbor, New York, not Florida, Bell Harbor, New York. Somewhere in between Brooklyn and like the Rockaways, and went to South Shore Elementary, Yeshiva for Rockaway for high school, and then I came to Eretz Yisrael, to Merkaz Torah. I was there for 3 years. Went back with the purpose of dating, getting married. Baruch Hashem, married the first girl I dated. Came back the next year, and was only supposed to be here for 2 years. That was the plan. Kadosh Baruch Hu, over the last 26 years, has just every time that we thought this, that, whatever it is, some stories were bigger than others, but Kadosh Baruch Hu basically told me, like, this is where you are going to be, and this is where you belong, and I'm just grateful to live in Eretz Yisrael, to live in Yerushalayim Yer Kodesh. So, that's, in a nutshell, that's my upbringing. But Baruch Hashem, I grew up in a very, very musical family. My grandfather, Alav Shalom, used to, a lot of singing at the Shabbos table, the Yontif table, daven for the Yomid a lot. And my father, followed suit after that. Pretty much the musical inspiration of, our family. Many people know my brother Aryeh, who's,
Big shout out right there. I hope he
yeah,
listens to this.
obviously I taught him everything, that he knows. Or actually, I should say, I told him everything that I know. He just learned a lot more after that, So, but I think Aryeh and I always, we always credit our musical foundation and inspiration to my father. He didn't just daven for the Yomid, which he did, but he, like, when he would give a kumzitz, it was with a fire, with a passion, and he would charge the people at the kumzitz that, like, we're not just singing here. This is a tefillah. This is something that's special. This is an opportunity. Think of what you're saying. And eventually he said it enough times, and it, like, drip drop, right into my head, into my heart, into my neshama, and Baruch Hashem, music has become a huge part of my life, obviously, and every new song came to our Shabbos table. Our Shabbos table is very, very special. But and Aryeh and I have, collaborated on a bunch of projects, and I've had the schus of putting out 4 albums, Vahavienu 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a bunch of singles, and just in yeshiva, Torat Shraga, Shout out. I've had the opportunity over the last 11 years now to, kumsitzes and musical productions and music videos and these type of things have just, enhanced, that love for music and bringing it over to the guys in the yeshiva, making a kumsitz something also like, the exact way that I grew up with my father, with a fire and with passion and with emotion, with meaning. And it's really been an opportunity, a gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me, that platform to be able to do that. I was asked a bunch of years ago to start giving out, like these messages of like what the songs mean, by a Torat Shraga Talmud. He reached out to me and so that little by little that turned into the spirit of the song. And, on Yaakov Langer's, Living L'chaim platform, and also another gift, another schus to be able to reach out to singers and, get the meaning of the songs that they sing, that they compose, which is nice for me, the songs that we all know. And again, music, different areas, different places. But that's my upbringing, and that's my musical upbringing. I think as a child I always thought I was going to be a hockey player, but I'm very happy that I am an educator, a mechanech in a yeshiva, and on the side I also work for a college program, Trio. So a lot of schools, a lot of the seminaries know me from that also as I present there. But yeah, that's I'm just glad and that I have the opportunity to live in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalayim with my wife and 9 kids, Kanei Nahara, and Baruch Hashem.
Wow, it's funny because as I hear you talk about your dad, I remember when I was in yeshiva, you used to bring him every time he came visiting from America. You would bring him for the kumsitzes, and then here and there you would throw an aria, and that was like my introduction to your musical talents and really like where your family like gets everything from, and it's like just really, really special. And your boys too, like you used to bring them to all the kumsitzes, and they put out their own music also for anybody. So
I think one of the best kumsitzes that we ever did in the yeshiva was in a lot of times it's in the dining room or in one of the the classrooms upstairs, but this was in the auditorium. I don't know why we chose that night in the auditorium. And Arya was here visiting, and my nephews were here, and it was basically like 7 Kunstlers, all playing, singing. It was absolutely amazing. It was the kumsitz. It was the last kumsitz before COVID. Wow. So it was just very, 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 very special. And yet my father has come in for some of the kumsitzes, and it's been, really just a beautiful gift that I've had. And as you mentioned, my kids, I like Bli Ayin Hara, Poo Poo Poo, very musical. My oldest son Moshe has produced a few songs, 3 songs, and just. Like sometimes, like his last song that he put out, I listened to it, when it was done, and I was like, wow, I never thought I would be jealous of my own kids, and their musical talents, but they're Baruch Hashem, they're great, and they've joined me for many kumsitzes. We've had a lot, we've had, father-son kumsitzes where, the rabbis came and they brought their kids. And it's just been very, very special, just really an opportunity.
Oh, Baruch Hashem, and I actually do remember I was at that kumsitz. It was in 2020.
Right, that was your year. That's right.
Right before COVID broke out. I want to touch on what you said before. You said when you were a little kid, you're like, oh, I always thought I would be a hockey player. 20 years ago or 25 years ago, when you were that little kid, if I would have showed you then what you are doing now today, what would you have told me?
I would have told you it's fiction. I probably would have been the least likely to be in the position that I am out of my whole class, and probably least likely to be where I am out of my year in Israel. But I've had some very, very special people in my life. Obviously family, who always gave me the opportunity and the choice. More time in Eretz Yisrael, more time in yeshiva, making it my decision. But the Rabbeim that I had in Merkaz, and just the mentors I've had, it's just they are really the ones that I'm a product of their eitzah, their advice, their hadracha. It's invaluable. It's invaluable. You come to Eretz Yisrael and it's like, okay, I'm coming, from a year in Israel or 2 or whatever it is, or for me 3, but it's not just about sitting in the shir room, getting the Gemara, which obviously that has a huge impact on you, but there's so much more. There's so much more, and there's the people that are in your life at those moments, those years, that just really, how Kadosh Baruch Hu orchestrates everything, no pun intended, but just the people, this Kolol guy and, this Rebbe who wasn't even my Rebbe, and, it's just like we hit it off, and whatever it is, just really, again, it's just another gift, that I'm thankful for every single day, that I am who I am because of, the people that, that made me, the product of their advice and the product of their warmth and their care. So, I would not have expected, like Dani Kunstler to be this type of Dani Kunstler, or Rabbi Dani Kunstler, or, a rabbi, or whatever it is that, the guys like to call me. But I'm just, I'm blessed.
Thank God. And speaking about role models, like I know we were talking about this off the air, but obviously, like, I want to give a public thank you to you for being somebody that really helped mold me who I am today during my time in yeshiva. So thank you. Speaking of yeshiva and that experience, obviously, that you went through, the topic of today, as I mentioned, is music and how much of an impact that has on your year in Israel, and obviously after. But something that you do, and one of the reasons why I want to bring you on this podcast today, is you have a music schmooze that obviously I've heard the schmooze multiple times, and it's absolutely amazing. And honestly, that helped me get more into Jewish music. But you've gone around to many different yeshivot and seminaries and given that schmooze, and kind of take me through that, like being a musical person, wanting to put that schmooze together, and then saying, okay, let me go out there and share it. Like, take me through that process of like what made you want to do that, and then we'll kind of unravel that.
Right. So it wasn't something that I chose to do. Like so many other people and so many other things in people's lives. My wife was working in a seminary, Machon Raya, at the time, and every year they have a yomian, focused on music or Ben Yisrael La'amim or things like that. And I think they're like 2 or 3 days before this yomian, their featured speaker on music couldn't come or something. I don't even know. And they were sitting around in like the staff room, and they're like saying like, okay, like, Rabbi so-and-so couldn't come. Does anybody have any ideas for music? So my wife, who's, by the way, like, she's amazing at everything else, but music is just not her, whatever. She's not tone deaf, but, like.
I hope she's not insulted, by the way, but if she listens to this.
Yeah, no. She doesn't have the time to listen to podcasts, so I'm good. But, so she was just like, my husband sings, he's put out some, he could probably speak. So they're like, you want to find out? So she calls me. I still remember the phone call. She's like, can you speak at Machon Raya in like 2 days, on music? And I'm like about what? So whatever. I spoke to one of the heads of their, their programming and stuff like that, and she gave me like an outline of the, ideas and the messages and stuff like that. I was like, okay, let me, give me an hour. Let me see like what ideas I could put together. And I literally spent the next 2 days, just going over the entire speech, like putting things together. And obviously it's evolved. I've been speaking now for, over 10 years, in seminaries and yeshivas, and it's evolved, and it's evolved for many different reasons because, first of all, the music is different. The students are different. The lore of the non-Jewish music world is also different. And also the music world. Just the way we listen to music is just worlds apart than when we were 10, 11 years ago. Just in the sense that 10, 11 years ago, if you wanted to listen to music, like you kind of had to like download it, and you have to put it on your phone, and now it's like you could just listen to music all day long. It doesn't have to end, which is amazing on the one hand. but it has its drawbacks. There are a lot of negatives to it. So like there's no time to like stop, think, process. It's just song after song after song, and just like next, and we don't have the time to even process the song. So 2 days later, I showed up, Machon Raya, gave my first music schmooze. I'm a big believer in two things when I speak anywhere on any topic, and that is, it's not about me. It's really about who I'm talking to, and what they want to hear. Meaning, what is going to draw them in? What is going to want to make them listen? So for example, part of this music schmooze is like halfway in or towards the second half of it, I say, okay, now we're going to talk about the topic, non-Jewish music, and everyone's like, oh, like okay, whatever, here he goes, he's going to bash it, and a lot of these seminaries don't just bring me in for music. They bring in a rabbi that talks about the halachic aspect of music and hashkafic aspect of music. My focus is just on how to tap into Jewish music. And the first thing I say when I bring up non-Jewish music is I tell them, like, I am not going to bash non-Jewish music. And jokingly, but in all seriousness, I say the reason is because I don't want you to think I'm some fanatical rabbi that's coming in here that like throws rocks at cars on Tuesdays, like another rabbi is coming to bash Jewish music. Oh, you're going to go to Gehenna if you listen, if you listen to non-Jewish music. I'm not like that. I'm not like that in general, and I'm not like that for sure when I speak, because I think it's very, very important to tap into what they need to hear and how they want to hear it. So I try to draw them in a way that's, with a little bit of humor, but also with a very, very serious side. So that's number one. It's like it's not about me. It's not, obviously I'm not going to speak about, a hashkafa or a topic or whatever it is that is, I've been asked to speak in a certain seminary, and they said, this is the message that we want you to get. And I'm like, I don't necessarily believe in that message. So the first year, they're like, it's okay, it's just whatever. So I did it. And then I got, pushback from this. I'm like, and then they asked me to do it a year later. And I said, I don't believe in that message. I'm sorry. I don't believe in that message. I don't think that for me, it could be for you, but that's number one. And number two is that I feel that one of our biggest problems is, the pasuk says, "Kachui mechem devarim v'shuv el Hashem." Take with you the words or the devarim, and return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I've found so many times when I was growing up, after a schmooze, a musar vad, or whatever it is, so it would end, and then somebody would crack a joke, or somebody would, okay, guys, who wants to go to pizza, or whatever it is, and it was just so that it didn't sit right with me. I was like, well, hold on a second, shouldn't we process this? Shouldn't this, shouldn't be, I'd be left with a feeling of okay, I need to think about what I just heard. So I made it my business that when I speak in seminaries that I want to end off with a bang. I want to end off in a way that these seminary girls and Shiva guys, they're literally still in their seats, and they're like, wow. And for those who have heard the music schmooze, that's what I do. I dim the lights, and I not all the lights. I make sure that I'm very into lighting the mood, and I tell them how I'm going to teach you how to tap into a song, and I tell them a story about a certain song that I wrote with my brother, with Aryeh. Very powerful background to a certain song. It's a tragic story, and we turned it into a song because that's what singer-songwriters do. We take all these things going on in our lives, and we turn it into music. We channel those feelings, those emotions into music, which is why you'll find so many times, for example, after Simchas Torah, after October 7th, after a few weeks, there were hundreds of songs that came out. After the Meron tragedy, hundreds of songs came out, because that's what we do. This is how we channel it. I tell the story, and then I tell them, close your eyes and listen to the song. And I want you to hear the story. I want you to see the story in the song. Tap into the song. And see what you could walk away with, and then the song ends, and maybe I say one very quick line as the song is finishing, and that's it. and literally, like, I've had, like, an auditorium of girls of like 120 girls, and I finish, and like most of the time, this is the reaction at the end of the music schmooze. They're literally just sitting there. They're like, wow. Like, it's a very powerful ending. And it's not the type of thing, like, I've never, ever, ever had a music schmooze where that finished and then the lights went on. Usually the lights stay off. They just keep the lights off because they don't want to ruin it. But most of the time, I don't ever remember a time that, someone said, like, who wants to go to Gula? Who wants to go to town? Like, it just, you can't. Like, the message has to, sit. But I spoke in Mechon Raya that year. Just getting back to the,
There is a story.
I spoke in Mechon Raya that year. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from another seminary that the girls who have friends in Mechon Raya were telling their friends about it. And they told their heads of programming, whatever it is, can you come speak in our seminary? And Baruch Hashem, like I said, I've had the schus of speaking about music over the last 10, 11 years. And I think this year I spoke in about 14 or 15 different yeshiva seminaries. And it's just, it's really, again, another gift, another opportunity for me to, for myself. I also try to, get stronger in my, the musical hashkafa that I have. But at the same time, it's just to be able to give over. I've literally been stopped in the street, walking home from shul on a Friday night, and there's like a young couple like walking the other way, and like they'll stop, and the wife will say, like, Rabbi Kunstler, and I'm like, try to be, which is like, I remember you from, the music schmooze. And like, thank you so much. Like, it's like one of these things that like stays with you. And, and then I had a very close family friend that was in Eretz Yisrael, and we invited them over for Friday night, with their family. They're like 5, 6 kids. And then we were talking, whatever, and he asked me, like, so what do you do? Yeshiva, this, that, whatever it is, music, how's the music career? I said, I speak in yeshiva seminaries, about music, about, how to, and his wife was like, wait, hold on a second. You give the music schmooze? Supposedly one of her friends, their daughter came back from seminary, and like, you have to listen to this, whatever, it was recorded. They listened to it, like 6 or 7 Brooklyn women, sat down to listen to the schmooze. And she told me, she's like, I heard that schmooze 3 years ago, and I haven't listened to non-Jewish music since. And I was like, wow. like you really have no idea. Like an idea, a concept, a hashkafa, whatever it is, like you have no idea how far-reaching it is. But that's really, that's really where the music schmooze has gone, and just glad for the opportunity. Just to finish off on this point, one seminary, I think Mechon Raya was really the first one to ask me during COVID, when they were like on lockdown, and they were like in quarantine. They're like, can you give a Zoom, part 2? So I started developing a part 2, and Baruch Hashem, it's really based off on a lot of the questions that the girls ask after part 1, and whatever. So it's something that I offer, and it's something that and people ask me, how much do you take? I'm like, whatever you want to give me. Like, I would do it for free. That's really how I feel, just to be able to give over. And
I have to say, first of all, it's amazing. I've heard the schmooze, as I mentioned before, and I've taken things that were, even today, like I remember, certain things that you said, and obviously we could talk about that whole schmooze for more than an entire episode. For the people that are listening to this podcast that are not zocha to be in yeshiva and seminary to hear your schmooze, is there a way that either if they reach out to me by email and I can send it to them, or what would you say is the best way that they could hear the schmooze?
Best way they could hear the schmooze is is to find someone who recorded it.
Do you have a recording yourself?
I personally, I think I had the first ever one recorded, because I wanted to, just to edit, what I wanted to say, what I didn't want to say. But I personally, I don't even have a recorded version of it. But it does get recorded. I've, Mash, no problem with the girls recording it or the guys recording it, whatever it is. And, that's really the only way. Find someone who recorded it, send out a message. Anybody recorded the schmooze?
If anybody's curious, like, send me an email. I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll try to track it down.
Yeah, we'll try to track it down. But I don't have I personally don't have a recording of it, so.
Gotcha. And you were saying before, part of your schmooze is you're not trying to like bash non-Jewish music specifically, but I kind of want to like to get more in depth, obviously, on this whole music talk and kind of how that affects you in terms of spiritual growth and whatnot. So on a surface level, we'll start at this for non-Jewish music, for even someone that's in yeshiva and seminary, obviously, and somebody not in yeshiva and seminary. As Jews, B'nai Torah, B'nos Torah, should we be listening to non-Jewish music?
Right. So it's a great question. And I'll start with this. You know, a lot of people have different understandings of, I'm going to talk in the realm of like, you know, the year in Israel or years in Israel. I'm not talking about like, you know, later in life or even earlier in life, but a lot of people have a certain understanding of their year in Israel of, you know, whether it's, you know, a yeshiva guy, it's, you know, Gemara or Chumash or Halacha, whatever it is that they're learning, you know, or seminary girls, the Hashkafa, and also, you know, the Chumash and the Halacha and all these type of things. And, you know, what can I gain? You know, what can I learn? What could I, you know, and I feel in a certain sense, it's a little bit of a wrong, this is just my opinion. I feel it's a little bit of a wrong mentality. I spoke in a seminary earlier this year, like the first Shabbos of the year. They asked me to speak, and I spoke about this idea. And I said, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble over here, but like, you probably all came in with like these expectations, you know, my year in seminary. And I said, this is not your year in seminary. This is your year to focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However you're going to do that. If it's through halacha, that you're going to get stronger in that area, or hashkafa, you're going to get stronger in that area, or in learning, or chashivas Torah, or whatever it is, that's what this year is about. It's not about you. It's about your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And my brother wrote a song, Brother Arya wrote a song called Mi Ani. And the words are very simple. Mi Ani, Ani Shalcha. Who am I? I am yours. It's not about it, like, who am I? If I say it, you know, I have expectation. I can't wait. You know, it's not about the I. You know, it's really about, you know, Ani Shalcha. It's about you. So who am I this year in seminary? Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's about you. It's about how I could connect to you. So again, a lot of people feel it's, you know, it's textual. It's the, you know, the shiurim. That's for sure a huge part. But the way halacha works and the way Yiddishkeit works, Judaism works in general, the beauty of it all is that it's not just about the spiritual things that we do. It's about everything that we do. It's about, the physical things that we do. We're eating an apple and we're making a bracha. It's a physical thing, but we're turning it into something spiritual. And all these things, all these things fall into that category. Music is yet another thing in that category. Sports is another thing in that category. I always tell the guys in Torat Shraga, you guys probably think that I'm not into, first of all, I was a huge sports fan growing up. Huge. Like I said, I wanted to be a hockey player growing up. I didn't want to be a rabbi. To me, if you're successful on the basketball court, that translates into success in the Beis Medrash also. It all means the same thing to me. If you're going to play ball as a Ben Torah. If you're going to do something, do it as a Bas Yisrael. And to me, that's what the year in Israel gives a person a real opportunity to do, and that is to focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This year is for you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm dedicating this year to you. This doesn't mean that we're turning into somebody that we weren't or whatever it is. I think my mother's the one that gave me this advice, literally on the way to the airport, for my year in Israel, which turned into 29, 20, whatever, 30 years in Israel now. And that is, whatever you do in Eretz Yisrael, we're cool with. You want to learn, you want to stark out, you want to from out, whatever it is, it's fine. But don't forget your personality. Don't forget, the reason why people people like you and the reason why people are friends with you, and don't lose yourself. And at the time, I was like this 18-year-old kid, like, oh, thanks, Mom, bye, like I'm going. But that was huge for me. That was like a very, very big thing for me because I felt, and I say it over a lot because it was very big. Every time that I made, large strides in my avodas Hashem, I always felt like I had to take a step back, process it with who I am. With that said, just to answer your question, with music is part of that also. Back in the day, my day, I know I'm going to sound old, like, we walk barefoot uphill both ways, in 110-degree weather in the winter, but there used to be something called CDs, and before that tapes, and before that records, like if you wanted to listen to music, you actually had to, carry around your record player, but, our Walkman or our Discman, like back when I was coming to Eretz Yisrael, you either brought your basically it looks like a photo album with like all your CDs inside the pockets, or you didn't bring it, or if like whoever had their CDs with them, that's what you listened to. And I listened to Jewish music back then, but I was mainly listening to non-Jewish music. I grew up with everything, like literally, like I grew up, literally on Hasidic music, but I also grew up on Avi Rottenberg, journeys and the godless of of his music and Dveikus. But I also grew up on like everything else, from there to African tribe music, banging on trash cans in Grand Central Station. It's like I literally grew up. They're awesome, by the way. My father would like walk through Grand Central Station and like see this African tribe selling their CDs. He would buy two, one for him, one for me. I grew up on everything and I listened to everything. I was exposed to everything, and I don't know why no one spoke to me about it. But before I went to Eretz Yisrael, I just made this decision. Like I'm, literally on the last day when I was packing my stuff, I'm not going to bring my CDs. I'm going to bring my, Jewish music CDs, but like I'm not bringing all the other stuff. I think that was the last day that I listened to non-Jewish music, from what I remember. Except for like walking into places and hearing the songs that oh my gosh, like I remember that song, which I talk about in my music schmooze. But just to give them the idea that like I understand the struggle, like I get it. It's not easy, like we're like so attached emotionally, sometimes to like some of the non-Jewish music. But should students be listening to non-Jewish music? It's not for me to, it's not for me to say. It's for them to choose. It's a choice that I made back then, and I saw the benefits of it. It's a choice that so many other people have made, and they've seen the benefits of it. And I think the biggest pushback that I get when people have this conversation with me is, like it's just music. Like it's entertainment, it's just, it calms me down. It's, I hear you, but it's not just music. It's your neshama. Would you ever say about your neshama? It's just your neshama, like, and the same way you wouldn't expose yourself to certain things, seeing things or hearing things, whatever it is, music has a huge effect. And this isn't the platform to like, start going into all the things, but like, it has a huge effect on a person's neshama, that's for sure. Ramosha Weinberger has a whole shir on it, on I think it's Parshas, maybe these Tezria Mitzvah could be this week's parsha. I don't know when you're going to air this, but he has a whole schmooze from years ago on the two birds, and one represents one thing, and it's very, very powerful. And he talks about the influence that music does have on your neshama. I've tried to any Adam Gadol, that I've had an opportunity to have the conversation about music with, I try. I was in yeshiva once. I was in Shabbos Rebbe in Shraga once, and Rav Hershel Schachter was there, and I just took the opportunity to to talk to him about music because I had heard a story about him, whatever. And we sat in schmooze for like 20, 30 minutes, just on the topic of music. It's something I'm still growing in, but it does have an effect, whether you see it or not. and a person's going to eat non-kosher food, you're still the same, Chaim shorts, like whatever it is, I'm going to go to the Beis Medrash now, but it has an effect on a person's neshama. It's not for me to say whether you should or you shouldn't. It's for you to choose. And I will say, and this is like probably my biggest point in my music schmooze, and this is important to say over here, that I always felt that the biggest problem that we have, I mean, myself included back in the day, is that we're listening to Jewish music the same way that we listen to non-Jewish music. And I always compare it, and everybody knows this comparison that I make to Kedem grape juice and fine wine. And, you can't drink fine wine the same way you drink Kedem grape juice. And if you do, you're going to be sick. It's just, it's going to be repulsive to you. You're just going to never want to look at wine again. But if you drink it in the proper way, and you drink grape juice the way and you drink fine wine the way you drink fine wine, so then you could come to, really appreciate fine wine. I always have this thing, I don't drink fine wine, but except for Perm.
Bottles.
Yeah. But those people who really appreciate the wine, you look at them and I wish I could drink like that, really appreciate, oh, this is good, it's a good year, yeah, it's not just a thing. People really, really appreciate it. It's something that they enjoy, and when they go buy their wine, it's something that they don't just go and buy any bottle. So I always say that we're listening to Jewish music the same way that we listen to non-Jewish music, which is, we're drinking fine wine the same way we would drink Kedem grape juice. And I think if a person learns how to drink that fine wine, learns how to tap into Jewish music in a way that they've never learned how to do before, the decision whether they should listen to this music or that music would be so much easier for them, really so much easier for them, because they're giving themselves a chance to really tap into something special. Not everyone is able to do it, but there are ways to do it,
You said a lot of fantastic points. I want to touch on something I feel like is very relevant to what's going on now in Israel, is that you touched on before. You said when you were getting on the plane to go for your year in Israel, people didn't have a smartphone. They had CDs, right? Today, everything's so accessible and it's so easy. And you log on to Spotify and you could have Simcha Liner on the same screen, and you could have, Lahavdil, El Havdalas, Jay-Z or Eminem, whatever rapper or whoever, whatever person somebody likes, in both worlds. And you have that right in front of you and that option. And let's say before Israel, it was always, let me click what's on the left versus let me click what's on the right. And it's just so easy and it's so accessible. So for somebody that's in Israel, that's listening to this, that it's like, I want to begin to be able to go this way and tap more into Jewish music and really get into it a little bit more. What would your advice be?
My advice would be twofold. My advice would be, first of all, if you're really struggling, and because you have the accessibility to all this type of music, I think one of, and this is not, no one's paying me to say this.
Exactly what you're going to say.
You know where I'm going with this, but no one's paying me to say this, but I think it's really, really, it's such a great gift to Klal Yisrael, and I just wish more people would take advantage of it. Instead of Spotify and instead of Apple Music, there's an amazing thing called 24/6. Where everything is, filtered in the sense that, they have mashkichim, of what goes on, whether it's the music that goes on or the music videos that go on or the podcasts that go on. I know your podcast is on there.
And I got that on there, by the way, because of you. You were the one that...
I said, people are on 24/6, and it's really, really tremendous. And you can get it as an app on your phone, or you can buy the the solo, the 24/6 solo, and it's huge. It's huge. I love my 24/6, and my kids, they're part of the family plan, and they love it, and I don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about, who was it, Jay-Z, whatever, going on. You don't have to worry about my kids, whatever, because it's not there. This is what they have. So that's number one, is how you want to put yourself in a position, what kind of position you want to put yourself in, where you have the test, or, do you want the test to overcome, or do you want to put yourself in a position where, this is hard for me and I want to make sure that I'm in the best position to succeed spiritually. And so that's one thing. But what I give over in the music schmooze, just as some advice, is find a song that you relate to. It could be anything. It could be fast, slow, whatever it is. A lot of people think that you can't tap into a fast. It's not true. It's not true. Some of the most meaningful songs I've written on my albums are the fast songs, and I never would have thought that was possible. You just okay, I need a fast song for the album. I need an opener. I needed this. I did that one song out of 4 albums. I needed an opening. So I was literally driving, and I had to come up with a song within the next few days, because we were almost done with the album, and I still didn't have that opening song, that knocking, and I forcefully wrote a song, and I to this day I have a hard time listening to that song. It doesn't call me crazy from in music, but I just find a song that you tap into, that you relate to. Somebody knows somebody who's Rahman al-Islam, lo aleinu, who's not well. Find the Rifeinu, find the Shema Kolenu, find any song that you could tap into. Know what the words mean, and listen to it by yourself. But don't just listen and move on to the next song, like what we said before. It's just we live in the, move on. Listen to it properly. Listen to it and let the message of the song sink in. Let it have an effect on you. I'll just tell you a quick story. Avi, I know you love stories, but
First of all, podcasts are meant for stories.
Yeah. When I was third year at Merkaz, so for our Hanukkah Masiba, we went to my Rebbe's house, Rabbi Mendelson, and we're sitting there, small talk here and there, whatever, eating, whatever it is, Divrei Torah, and then we started singing a song. The boys. It was one of the newer songs back then. The Ani Mamin Be'emunah Shelema, and we sang the song, I think once or twice around, and then we stop. Usually that's when the Rebbe speaks. And he was a very, very introspective person. He was a Talmud of Rav Wolbe, very everything thought out, And he turned to us and he said, "L'chayra." I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but this is the message that he gave us, But he said, "L'chayra, if you were to sing this song 20 more times with kavana, none of you would ever go to college." We were like, what? So whether that happened or not, I think a lot of us went to college, but we had to sing the song 20 more times. We sang the song 20 times. And I think after 17, I turned to my friend, I'm like, "Are we done yet?" He was like, "No, we're actually we're at 18. And I'm so I'll never forget that, because, as extreme as it sounds, it's true. If you were to tap into a song and you're really tapping into the message of the song, you can't stop listening to it. And you'll listen and you'll listen. And it's not about what type of song it is. Anybody who knows my music and knows my brother's music is very different. Mm-hmm. They're worlds different. I think my brother's music has come closer to my type of music over the years. From heavier to less heavy and more deep and emotional. But I am a huge fan of his music. Ad Kadei Kach, in Elul, his music is all I listen to. And I'll listen to certain songs over and over and over, and I feel like it just gets me into a moment, into a mood, into a mindset. Now I'm ready. I'm ready to walk into Rosh Hashanah. I'm ready to walk. He has a Maracon. I'm ready to walk into Yom Kippur. He has a song called Gates about Ne'ilah. I'm ready to walk into. It's I get chills when I think about it. When I listen, when I listen to his music, there's something about his music that just like takes me, and I can't stop. And I literally can't stop. And I listen to it over and over. And sometimes I'll come home from yeshiva, I'll be sitting in the car, and I'll just like turn the car off and just listen to a specific song like 2 or 3 times. And my wife will call me like, "Where are you already? Your kids are going crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, hit some traffic, like hit some traffic, like music traffic." But, it's when you tap into a song and you let it have an effect on you, there's no better way to get into Jewish music. There's no better way than to appreciate it and to grow from it than like that. And so many people say, they ask me after I speak, but I could tap into, that. I'm like, could be, I don't know. I don't know. But give this a chance, before we, all these stories of these Bali Tshuva that were in India, this and that, and like the head of the religion, whatever it is, the Dalai Lama, whatever it is, we're just a copy of Judaism. Give Jewish music a shot. Realize that maybe you're not listening to Jewish music in the right way. The same way that if you're pounding a certain type of food that really, like if you're eating a steak like in a really fancy restaurant, you're just eating it like the same example of the Kedem grape juice and the fine wine is like you don't buy a hamburger in a steakhouse and you don't buy a steak in a burger joint. Because if you're going to do it, you're just not going to appreciate it. Go to a steakhouse and sit, take a bite, small piece, savor it. Like there's something about it. You'll never eat steak again the same way. It's just different. You'll never drink fine wine the same way. It's just different. So I tell them, give it a shot. Give it a shot. I just another story. I was speaking in a certain seminary, and a girl came over to me after I spoke, and she said that she was finishing up her Shana Bet, and last year when I came to speak in the seminary, so she was not in a good place. There was family stuff going on, and there was stuff in the seminary going on, and the seminary wasn't happy with her, and she wasn't happy with that. It's just like I was not in a good place. And not only that, Rabbi Kunstler, but the entire music schmooze, I was listening to non-Jewish music. I'm like, okay, why are you telling me this? So she said, the last 15 minutes, she said, okay, I'm here already. May as well listen. And this is the nekuda that I was bringing. This is the point that I was saying in that last 15 minutes before that powerful ending where I shut the lights off. And she said, every time I'm in a bad place, I always run to, to my music, my safe place, my safe space, with my music and my AirPods, I said, let me give it a shot. Let me give it a shot. And she said it's not, a cold turkey type of thing. It's a process. And she said, 3-4 weeks ago, I finally, Baruch Hashem, was able to officially wean myself off of non-Jewish music, and all I listen to is non-Jewish music now.
Jewish music now.
All I listen to is Jewish music now. Sorry, yeah. And she just wanted to thank me, and I said, it's not me. It's kachuim mechem devarim v'shuv el Hashem. It was your choice to listen, to take those AirPods out, to listen. It was your choice to decide, so many other girls were present, physically, emotionally, and being very attentive to the entire thing, and they didn't make that decision. But you did the work, something we were talking about beforehand. Sometimes I feel like I'm just, I'm putting this on the table, but you have to, you made the decision, you did the work. So that's what I tell people, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Drink Jewish music in the proper way. Drink it properly and do it in a way that's giving you a chance to really tap in. There's so many beautiful messages, so many beautiful things that you could draw from Jewish music. It could be any type of Jewish music. And just to give you an idea, I don't speak to one type of crowd. I literally speak from hardcore Beis Yaakov to extremely modern, and everywhere in between. And I do have to adjust, certain things that I do say, what I don't say, but the message is the same. Tap into Jewish music, give it a shot. Tap into, teaching you how to do it. And Baruch Hashem, across the spectrum, it's just the feedback has been amazing, and I just the opportunity and the gift to be able to do it is, who am I?
Couldn't agree more.
Mi ani shalcha. It's really, yeah.
That story that you just mentioned about that girl, one of the points that you mentioned that she said to you was, it's not cold turkey. It's something that like I ease myself onto. That kind of like channeled me to obviously the next question I was thinking about is, obviously as we mentioned before, let's say you have Spotify, right? You have all the non-Jewish music you listen to, and maybe you're like dabbling a little bit into Jewish music, and you really want to find your connection to Jewish music. Do you think I got completely black out non-Jewish music? Because as you were saying before, the comparison is like grape juice and wine. So can you be sipping on both a little bit at the same time while really getting to appreciate the other, or do you kind of block out one in order to really appreciate the other?
Well, I think anything in moderation is probably the healthiest way to go. I think everybody knows that. I used to teach in yeshiva called Ner Yaakov. Shout out to Ner Yaakov. The guys came, low on their religious level, and I always remember the guys who just like drastically like changed overnight. They went from their torn jeans and piercings and this and that and all these like, mohawk haircuts and all their craziness, and like the next day they show up like, fancy schmancy, black pants, white shirt, looking like a penguin, like literally like that. I never took it seriously, because I feel like it's just not how we do things. And the guys who did the work, who put in extra hours, with their jeans and T-shirt and piercing and everything like that, and then eventually, like little by little, I have a certain kavod atzmi, I have a certain self-respect now. Like I can't walk around like this. You need to take the earring out. One of the biggest moments of nachas that I had back then was like one of in Ner Yaakov, it's not just like your Talmud, it's like joint Talmidim. Like everybody has a part in the growth of every Talmud over there, which is really special. Was really special and still is. When we see the nachas nowadays, is one of our Talmidim was doing it in the right way. Little by little, moderation. Just really like I'm not ready for this, but I am ready for this. I'm not now. I am now. I'm not. Like little by little by little by little, and then one day, you saw the change. And he was at the point where he was dressing not necessarily black and white, which is fine. That's not our goal in life, is to be black and white, but it's just to look like a respectable human being. And he put up a sign on the bulletin board saying, like selling my old jeans and my this and that, and it was like it was very special. Like he was like really ready to move on from that. Like I'm selling it, and I think that when a person does make that decision that he I do want to try something in Jewish music. I really wish that this is another area of my religion that like we said at the beginning, like this is part of Avodas Hashem. Music is part of Avodas Hashem. Food is part of Avodas Hashem. Entertainment is part of Avodas Hashem. I always, one of the questions that I ask in part 2 is I ask the students, what is the most beautiful, when just thinking off the cuff, like what's the most beautiful part of music? What would you say is the most beautiful part of music? And you have many different answers. I always say what I feel, it's the harmony. It's the harmony. And the reason why I feel it's the harmony is because when you think about it, it makes no sense. You could have like 7 people singing, 7 completely different things, and everyone's on, and it sounds wow. You have one person singing, or everyone's singing the same, melody, the same chorus, the same line, and it's, a nice choir. But when everyone is singing something, when you listen to we're in Sphere now, so like I always say, like when we can't listen to music or shouldn't be listening to music, it's a great time to talk about music. And so there's all this vocali a cappella stuff, and you hear the harmonies, and it's like, wow, it's so beautiful. But to me, it means a lot more than just the musical aspect of it. It's really what our Jewish life is supposed to be about. You have the melody, and that is the core of what we are. That mi ani shalcha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are one in my life, and that's as high of a level or as low, wherever I am, that's your melody. That's everyone's melody. But then you have all these other parts of our lives. You have your social life. You have your job. You have vacations. You have the hechsher that you eat, and you have the music that you listen to. So if everything else is all stimming properly with your melody, I go on vacation, in a place that's matim for for the level that I'm at, or ben Torah, whatever it is, or the hechsher I eat, I'm very whatever, and the job that I do, and everything, I'm very yasher in my job and all these things. Music is like, okay, whatever. That's where I let loose a little bit, I listen to whatever it is that's out there. To me, that's somebody singing off. Yeah, everything is on. You have like all these levels of singing, and one person is singing off. And anybody who, when you sing together and you with people who when I sing at at the Shabbos table with my kids, and Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, my kids aren't tone deaf, but when there's that one kid that's off, everyone looks at it's like you're off, that's what it is, music is a part of your overall avodas Hashem. It's part of it, and when you are listening to non-Jewish music, you're creating, an off chord in your whole a cappella of life of your from Jewish lifestyle. It's something that somebody should. It is a big thing. Now, how big? That's up to you. Where you're holding, where everyone, but. At the end of the day, to actively be in both worlds. Yeah, I'm going to listen to Jewish music, but I'm also going I'm going to. Okay, I don't know if that should be the mentality. If you want to try to start weaning yourself off, and okay, so there's that moderation of okay, I got to do it the right way, and I'm not ready to completely go cold turkey on non-Jewish music, but a girl came over to me after speaking once, and she said, I know it's going to sound weird, and she was also the end of Shana Bet, and she looked it was a modern Orthodox seminary, but she was you could tell that she had she was very different than the way she was when she walked in 2 years prior. I didn't know her, but you could really tell really had a certain chen, a certain Bas Yisrael look to her, which and she said, I know it's going to sound really strange, but I love rap music. I love rap music. It's funny because, like I said before, I grew up on everything. Rap music is the only thing I didn't listen to because I just never, whatever. But some people like it, So, she's like, and over my last 2 years, I've really I went from gangster rap that has every possible thing that anybody, I don't care if you're Jewish, non-Jewish, criminal, doesn't make a difference. No one should be listening to this stuff. To no curse words in it, but inappropriate words, and then to whatever. It's and now I'm basically at I'm at Nissan Black and whatever the other rappers that are out there. I'm so what's your question? She's is that okay? I said that's incredible. It's it's okay to listen to rap music? I'm yeah. It would be okay even if you weren't up to Nissan Black yet. It would be okay, if Nissan Black was your end, kol hakavod, wow. That's incredible. And she said it was a 2-year process to get there. I'm that's incredible. And take if you're gonna do it and you're gonna jump in and try to whatever, do it responsibly. Do it in a way that will last. I think that's the key. Do it in a way that will last. And, just another Ner Yaakov story. I'll never forget this.
Ner Jake stories.
Ner Jake stories are the best. But I remember when I was in the kollel before I was teaching there. So my chavrusa and I noticed there was a guy in the back corner of the Beis Medrash. And he was sitting there with his big headphones and his Discman, and like sitting there with like his legs crossed in the corner, and back and forth like this, back and forth, like some kind of like heavy rap, whatever it is, reading A Path of the Just, Masil Shasharm, and I was like, what? I remember my reaction. I was just like, that's crazy. Like turned to my brothers. I'm like, do you want to tell him like this is a little bit crazy? He said, crazy? Can you imagine if this guy were to channel the energy that he's putting in now to learn and to listen to the music? If you were to channel that to, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like what this guy could become, like, wow. And I was like, you are a strange dude, but you're like, Maisa, he is a Rebbe in a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael now, wow. Because he did learn how to channel all that energy into Torah, into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, into teaching, into the passion, for all these type of things. And he was able to do that. And it took time. I'm sure he didn't do it overnight, but it's a change that lasted, and it's a change that's now affecting other people, with his Talmidim, and that's the most special part about the whole thing.
First of all, I love your stories, and obviously we'd spend another hour here if we wanted to. The biggest thing that I'm taking from a lot of what you're saying is that it's not cold turkey. It's like a process of like slowly but surely getting there, and like everybody on their own pace to like what level like they need to get to. All in all, with everything,
it could be cold turkey. If it works for you, then great. The people who I've met, that when they tried cold turkey, it didn't work. So right. My recommendation is do it slowly. But,
slowly but surely, for sure. I couldn't agree more.
To each their own. Everybody has a different path.
Another thing that I want to touch on right now, and I know we were speaking about this a little bit before, was one of the most integral parts of your year in yeshiva and seminary is Mishmar, Shabbos, Miros. There's just like so many things that are revolving around music. And I know you have a lot to say about that. You used to run Mishmar Shraga, and you do music in different schools. So talk to me a little bit about kind of that and how that plays a role in students and kind of how they should go about that throughout the year.
Right. So one of the experiences that I've had in giving doing kumsitzes in yeshiva is you have a yeshiva, let's say like Torat Shraga, you have like 120 guys. So there are always going to be guys that are into it. There are guys who are somewhat into it, and there are guys who are like, whatever it is, like schmoozing in the back or whatever it is, which obviously, it ruins the feeling for everyone. What I feel it's a huge thing. These moments in yeshiva, the kumsitz, the zemiros, it's a huge thing. When you walk into a dining room, I've been to yeshiva for Shabbos, and you had zemiros that was DOA, like it was like mamish, like, with 120 guys in a room, I was like trying to, pull teeth and get like 3 guys to sing with me. And it was like, this is crazy. And like at the end of Shabbos, I was just exhausted. And then I've had Shabbos where I walk in there and it was like maybe 3 guys weren't singing, weren't into it. And the guys walked out at the end of Shabbos like, wow, that was an incredible experience. It's huge. So like, from 2 sides. Number one, realize that this is a huge opportunity, like the Zemiros and the Kumsitzes and any musical, you're on a trip and the guys are getting together and they're singing whatever it is. These are opportunities. These not just like corny moments, like whatever. Oh, we got to the top of the mountain. Let's sing Tov Lahodos, okay, so don't sing Tov Lahodos, but sing something else, sing whatever. But like, be present, be realize that it's an opportunity for you. And on the other side, like, realize that there are other people that do want to tap into these moments. And if you're just not there, you're not either holding there or you're just not in the mood for it, don't ruin it for other people, because these are once in a lifetime opportunities when you get everybody. I know just with 9 kids, getting everybody to be in the mood for singing Zemiros at my Shabbos table, and everybody is on, and it's like, I think we just had our first Shabbos all year like that. Whatever. Usually we'll have 3 kids that are interested, and the other 4, whatever. But these are opportunities, and if it's not your thing, it's not whatever. You're chill, as they say. So that's fine. But don't be in the back schmoozing. Don't ruin it for other people. But also at the same time, when you're making that decision not to be a part of this chill, realize that you're losing out. you are losing out. It's not like, oh, no, I came to Israel for this, and this is just, no, you came to Israel for this. This is what you came for. This is a part of it. Being at your rabbi's house and singing, being on a trip and singing, having a kumsitz and singing, being at a mishmar and singing at a Shabbos table, making Shabbos Zmiris and yeshiva great again. Just making it beautiful. It will give you such a burst of inspiration if you're in it, if you're present, and you're part of the camaraderie and part of the inspiration. I can't even explain that, like what it's done to my talmidim over the years that have consciously decided like when we do this is something I want to do. I want to be a part of. I'm not going to be one of those guys. I want to be one of these guys. I want everything that the year has to offer, because that's going to make me the best Oved Hashem, at the end of this year. So
fantastic point. And it's funny because I've been that guy in the kumsitz when you have people behind you that are talking and kind of ruining it, but you don't want to be the guy to turn around to your chaver and you're like, okay, just like be quiet.
You're the shusher.
Fantastic point. Amazing. Mamash. And with everything that we said today, there's so much that I've taken from this. Obviously, we've known each other for a while, and I've learned so many new stories from yourself, and hearing this side of the music schmooze has been like really, really interesting to hear, and hopefully people take a lot of chizuk from this episode. My final question to you is for anybody that's listening to this, mostly probably students in their year in yeshiva and seminary, but probably people after and parents and really anyone. If you had one message in a bottle that was like, take this with you wherever you go for the rest of your life, it doesn't have to be about music specifically. It could be anything. What would that be?
Oh, it's a tough question. But I think that I think the answer would be, or the message that I would give over is very similar to that harmony idea. Is figure out what you want to be. Figure out what your melody is in life. What kind of Jew do you want to be? And everything that surrounds that melody, all the harmony that surrounds that melody, that's your avoda in life. Your job in life is to come to complete harmony, one thing to the other. That your music shouldn't be different than the way you act in your job, and your job shouldn't be different than where you go on vacation, and your social life, and what you look at, and what you watch, and how you entertain yourself. Be one. That we're supposed to. Our job in this life is to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His oneness. I think that's part of that's what we're talking about over here, is be one. That all the things that you do need to come from the source of who you are. Be real with yourself and ask yourself, like, hey, like, I'm a Ben Torah, and maybe this isn't the music I should be listening to. Does a Ben Torah listen to this type of music? And I consider anybody who comes to Eretz Yisrael, dedicate them, their year, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I consider them all B'nai Torah, and everyone of Bas Yisrael who's done that. It doesn't matter what you look like, what you wear, ask yourself, like, is this befitting of a Ben Torah? The hechsher that I eat, the music that I listen to, the way I'm talking to my Ben Olam L'Chavero, is this befitting of a Ben Torah? Be harmonious with your core, with your melody. I think that's the message I would give over, because I think it's the most important thing.
I'm taking that, and I'm keeping that one in my pocket. That's for sure. I've never heard that one from you. As many schmoozes as I've heard. That
Part two.
Whoever wants part two, let me know. We'll have to do part two. But this...
No, part two of the music schmooze. That's like,
I thought you meant part two of this.
That's why you didn't hear it. Yeah. But that's really the message.
Fantastic point. And just really, like, this past hour, I'm looking at the clock right now. It's been, I think, a little more than an hour, and it felt like 10 minutes. And I just really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And thank you again for coming all the way from Yerushalayim. And
an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, I know I don't talk about this a lot, but feel free to give us a like on YouTube, subscribe. And I know you hear about that from like every YouTuber, but honestly, it does help. It helps us grow. It helps us get more engagement, and it just helps more people find our podcast online. So feel free to do that if you enjoyed our stuff. If you have any recommendations of other people you want to hear on our podcast, feel free to shoot me an email, which you'll see in the description below. Thank you guys all so much for the support. We will see you in 2 weeks, B'ezrat Hashem, for the next episode. Have a good one, everyone.